I've seen it before. It turns truth into lies. Oh, but I won't back down. I must stay on this road. I gotta know what I'm about. It goes up and turns back down. We're all looking for the moment when getting used to not knowing when all the pieces fall in line. Oh, it goes up and turns back down. I keep searching for signs in my dreams back then. I don't know how to stop, 'cause it brings back the feeling that I can't reach the top now, even if I don't know how. It brings back the feeling that even if it all goes down, in the end I'll be alright. It brings back the feeling. Yeah. It brings back the
So, do you have a story, a passion, a message to share? Do you have experience, maybe several years of experience that you want to turn into a business, maybe a podcast? If so, I hope you tune in and hang out with us tonight. Welcome, everybody. I'm Jonathan Milligan, author of the brand new book, Your Message Matters. And I'm the founder of Market Your Message. And all this week, we are doing a special live interview showcase called Live Your Passion. And I want to introduce people that are directly from this book and also some that are right inside of this community that we have here. And so these stories are meant to help inspire you. Because here's the thing. I hope if you've been following along, and by the way, as you come into the room, let me know you're here. Just put your first name, where you're watching from, so I can say hello to you. And we've got this broadcasting, of course, in 6 different locations across Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. So just say hello to us. It all is coming in here, and I can see it as well. But I want to share some of these stories because these stories are a source of inspiration. Because most of us, we don't start off with having it all figured out. We start from very humble beginnings. In fact, in the beginning of this book, I put, it doesn't matter where you live, doesn't matter what's on your resume, it doesn't matter what credentials you have or don't have, it doesn't matter how young or old you are, it doesn't matter how successful you've been in life. If all this is true, then what's required to get started? Well, there's 2 requirements. First, you must believe you have a message to share. And then, number 2, you must believe that your message matters. In fact, some stories in the book that I included were a bread truck delivery man from Milwaukee who built an international marketing agency, or a college dropout who built a Fortune 5,000 business in just 5 years sharing his advice online, a camera-shy woman who grew a 7-figure online education business about live streaming, a struggling young man and formerly suicidal teenager who turned his mess into his message and became a best-selling author. By the way, I interviewed him on Monday. That's Carrie Oberbrunner. A burned-out corporate employee who left her day job to travel the world, all while running a business from her laptop. We live in a fantastic time. In fact, I like to say, anyone anywhere can influence anyone anywhere. And your message matters. And what you've gone through, your story, your experience, your passion, those things can be helpful to other people. You could build an audience and a business around that. So tonight, I'm excited to be interviewing Lynn. I'm going to introduce Lynn here in just a second. And we're going to get into the interview tonight. But I want to say hello to a few people. So go ahead and let me know that you're here. I see we got Randy. He is here from Michigan. Welcome, Randy. We got Michelle tuning in from Ormond Beach. Welcome, Michelle. Not too far from me. Fellow Floridian. Let's see. We've got Walter hanging out with us. NWT. Tell me what that is. Is that Northwest Tennessee, Northwest Texas? You got to help me out there. I'm not sure. Let me know. Pam's here. She says, just west of the Great Smoky Mountains in Tennessee. And Barbara's here hanging out from Texas. Glad that you are here as well. And yeah, for the rest of you, let us know you're here. Ask away, ask your questions, interact with us for a little bit tonight. And our goal is just to share some inspiring stories. And as you hear these stories this week, it's going to help and inspire you. So I want to bring on tonight's interview. And I'm really excited about this interview. I've gotten to know this individual for a couple of years now, and I think you're going to enjoy hearing his story and hearing his journey and what he is up to. So I'm not going to steal his thunder, giving you all of his bio, but I want to introduce to you tonight Lynn Friesth, and he leads, or actually has a podcast called Leading the Factory Forward, and he has a passion for kind of a new term that he's been using called the silver entrepreneur. We're probably going to get into that a little bit tonight, and you can go ahead and try to take a guess right now what that means. I love this concept. I love this idea, but he's been putting his message out there via podcast, which is a great way to share your message. Just like we talked about earlier today, we had Jeff Brown on from Read to Lead, who has utilized a podcast to build a platform as well. All right. Oh, gotcha. Walter says he's in the Northwest Territories, Yukon area. Wow. And originally from Miami. Well, that's quite a journey. That's quite a difference there. I'm sure there's a story there that would be pretty interesting. Glad that you're hanging out with us tonight, Walter. That's pretty awesome. So here's what we're going to do. Without further ado, I want to bring on Lynn, and we're going to have a casual conversation tonight. And so Lynn has joined us, and so I'm going to bring him in. And Lynn, are you there?
Absolutely, Jonathan. Thank you. And
Awesome.
I'll note that I'm from Western Illinois, so as opposed to polo shirts like Jonathan has, we're in fleece up here, so it's about 28 degrees. Maybe warmer than Walter is, but a little cooler than Florida.
So I got to admit, I'm a little bit of a weenie because I grew up in Indiana and even went to college in Chicago, and so I know what the winters are like. But when I moved to Florida, I think I got spoiled. I think I got a little bit, I don't know what you want to say, weak. Because like earlier today when I did the interview, I had a sweater on and it was probably 45, 50 degrees out. So there you go. I know you won't feel sorry for me. So, but Lynn, we're glad that you're here. Why don't you start by telling people a little bit about you and the people you serve?
Sure. Well, I began after a long corporate career. I began leading the factory forward by serving leaders, especially in manufacturing. I wanted to help them improve themselves in their business. But as I worked with them, I found that especially small and medium-sized manufacturers needed talent and couldn't find it. And yet, on the other hand, I knew a lot of people like myself who were leaving corporate careers, and yet they didn't want to just retire and play golf. They still wanted to make a contribution. So now I'm looking to help people like myself who are ready to leave the corporate world and start a second act or become what I call the silver entrepreneur. And so, basically, I want to help leaders who are leaving the corporate life live the lifestyle they want and yet use their expertise to leave a legacy with other people.
Yeah, I love that. So let's unpack that a little bit just for people. When you say silver entrepreneur, you gave a little bit of a hint of what that means, but tell us a little bit more.
Well, and again, it's as you move from your corporate job, you're truly becoming an entrepreneur. You're going to be, and many of them will probably be a company of one. So they're just fundamentally a different set of mindsets that you have to have, different skill sets you have to have. And so, that's some of the stuff that I've learned. And that's what I want to share with other people to allow them to, again, make this contribution that not only that they can, but they need to make for other people.
And I love this because here you have people who've had years of experience and they have a wealth of knowledge to share. But the part that they get tripped up on is, how do I attract an audience for that? How do I attract clients? How do I uh, put myself out there? Especially technology can sometimes be daunting. It can be intimidating. It can be, I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to do a podcast or a live stream or any of that. And so that's the piece that it's like, man, here's somebody that's got all this wealth of knowledge, but yet they just need someone to come alongside them, like yourself, to help them know what to do. How do you act as an entrepreneur today? Is that the essence of what you're passionate about?
Absolutely, because again, it's my experience. What I found is that, you know, uh, when you're in the corporate life, a lot of things are well defined for you. You have
Yeah.
structures, you have processes, all these things. So you may be offering great expertise, but it's within a framework that's well known. Now, all of a sudden, if you're a company of one, a lot of these things you have to decide for yourself. And then again, from my experience in the corporate life, corporate corporations like certainty, and so they don't value mistakes very often. And yet, as one of our colleagues is often fond of telling me, Lynn, you have to learn how to practice in public now.
Yeah.
Well, of course, that wasn't valued in corporate life, practicing and making mistakes. So, those are some of the mindset changes you have to make as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, and I think that surprises a lot of people that it's different in that way, right? Because when you're in a traditional work setting, you're on clock time, right? It's kind of you clock in, you clock out, you do your work. This is when you work. But a lot of times, what people don't realize is clock time and event time is much different. Event time is you don't have to sit at your desk and work from 9 to 5. You can choose your hours, but you can also get 8 hours of work done in 3 hours or 4 hours if you're strategic about what you're doing. And so, event time and clock time are much different for sure. How did you kind of get started in this road? So, talk about that transition for you on leaving the corporate world, and yet you had this unsettled desire to want to do something new and different. Can you talk about that?
Excuse me. Yeah. Well, I had a 41 year successful career with a large company. It was a great company to work with. I had great opportunities there. But in the end, I felt it was time to move into my own second act. I wanted to find new ways to use my skills and expertise. I wanted to be on my own, as it were. And as you say, I wanted to share things at my pace with the lifestyle that I wanted to do. So I'll say I engaged in a whole lot of learning activities to start with, because you could grab all kinds of, I must have 20 books on becoming an entrepreneur and consultant. I took programs. In fact, I even took an early program with you, Jonathan, and it really helped me get started. But I had to do things like find my voice.
Mm.
What was it I was going to share? As we would say in entrepreneurship, what was my value proposition? And how was I going to communicate that to people? So it's been a journey of several years, but I will say that programs like yours, Jonathan, those are the things that really helped me move the needle forward on that for those skills I didn't know. And I'll say the other thing that I probably learned along the way is I didn't have to learn how to do everything.
Mm.
I At some point, you're doing well enough, you can hire people to do pieces of the work. And in today's world, it's easier than ever that if I needed help with copywriting, or if I needed help, doing the technical publishing of a podcast, there were people that could help. So I had to, on one hand, I didn't have the resources of a big company behind me. On the other hand, I didn't have to do it all by myself either. So, that helped to learn that.
Yeah, so you do a podcast, Leading the Factory Forward, and I saw several episodes recently talking about advice for the silver entrepreneur. And so maybe do you mind talking a little bit about that for a minute on getting started with the podcast, and what were some of your biggest challenges when you first got started?
My biggest challenge was me, quite frankly. You know, was I willing to just get in there and speak on the podcast? And now I've added some interviews, and I found that's kind of an interesting thing too. So it's not just me talking by myself, but a lot of it was, and then the technology piece. Originally, I thought, well, I'm going to have to learn how to do all the technology involved in a podcast. Well, I found out I didn't. I could have other people help that. So now I basically, and the other reason I got into podcasting rather than, we'll say, blogging writing is it's easier for me to talk to than write. And so now, as Jonathan, as you well know, that once I have a podcast now, I can get it transcribed, and I've got text too to work with. But
Yeah.
it was some of it, and then just getting that whole idea of how do you put together your message for a podcast. So again, people like yourself helped me put that together so it made sense as I move forward with it. But I probably overcomplicated it, because at the end it's just me talking to a microphone. So
Hey, listen, that is so easy to do, right? It's I don't know how many times I have found myself like learning so much and not taking action, and I always have to remind myself the simplest solution's often the best solution. And that's when I just like, okay, you don't have to get it right, but you got to get it going, right? And so I think that is just those constant reminders for me help me to keep pushing forward. Because I know, like live streaming, I mean, that's something I tackled last year as one of like the big areas of growth that I wanted to. And so, I didn't know how to use software like I'm using now. I didn't know how to broadcast it to 6 locations like we are right now. And quite frankly, I didn't do all that at once. I waited probably a good 4 or 5 months before I started simulcasting it to multiple places, because it was just like, I don't have to get it all right. I just got to get it going.
mhm,
And then we can like figure out the next step and the next step. And I think that's what's the lesson, and what you're saying is that you just need to get it going. And then as you do, you can start building upon those skills. Wouldn't you say that's true?
absolutely, yeah, and trying to do the like you say, the simplest next thing. So yeah, I did start with the blog because that was, I could set that up and get it going in a simplified way. And then I got the podcasting, and I got some help with that. And then it's a matter of just taking that weekly action or daily action, to keep it moving. And I'll say, well, the podcast now has 70 plus episodes, so I finally built some momentum. But I'll say the first few episodes were a couple of weeks apart or a month apart, because I'd get going, and then, well, quite frankly, I would have to say fear or worry would get set me back. So some of it was just getting comfortable that, hey, it's just me talking to a microphone and sharing my thoughts with it that can help others. So
Yeah, absolutely. It's almost like you just pretend like you got somebody that's right there in front of you, and they are your perfect ideal listener, and you're just having a conversation with them. And I love that. So this week we're talking about the importance of living our passion. And I think this is a good topic, especially starting off the new year, because, last year was tough for a lot of people. There's people who lost their
mhm,
jobs, people who their situation changed, where they went from like maybe a job they really enjoyed in person to now they're virtual, and things change, and just it change creates that kind of unsettledness in a lot of us.
mhm.
And so there's a lot of people who are kind of at that right now. But at the same time, they're like, I mean, is it selfish for me to pursue my passion? Is it selfish for me to kind of launch into something I want to do? And obviously, we're not saying quit your day job and just start a podcast. You need to build that up on the side, which is a perfect business to start on the side. But talk a minute about for you, you could have retired. I mean, 41 years in a very reputable company. You could retire, just play golf, and just like relax, and that just be your thing. But there was a passion there to want to contribute, to want to help. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, and again, I think my original focus was the small companies, that I knew that they struggled because they only had, they may have a leadership team of 1 or 2 people, and so they only have so much bandwidth. And yet, in manufacturing in particular, there's all kinds of technology going on. There's just the day-to-day pressure to do things. So I thought, okay, I can, one, help these people be more effective in their own leadership, but then help them learn how to be more effective with their teams. And that is what I kind of did in my corporate career. But now I could set my own terms of the engagement, and again, I thought I could help people that would really find it useful.
Yeah, that's awesome. What's a success or win so far from either launching the blog, the podcast, or just where you're at right now? When you look back, what is a win? Maybe it's just a personal thing. Maybe it's something feedback from a listener or something. I don't know. What's a success or win for you for taking this action?
Well, probably the one that's the most concrete was the fact that I have 70 some episodes. I get maybe between 300 and 600 downloads a month. And that's not a lot compared to the all stars, that have millions of downloads. But it's a group, it's more people than I ever could have reached in person,
Yeah.
in most experiences. And then, and interestingly enough, I have a group of people in India that are listening to my podcast. So, okay, that's not something I normally would have been able to do. But
That's
the other
awesome.
thing is through this whole podcasting and other work, I've been able to connect with people on a global basis. And again, that is, it's just so rewarding to see people in such various parts of the world, and being able to do that, right from my own home.
Yeah. And I don't know if you want to spill the beans or not, so if you don't have to, but I think it's also giving you access to be able to interview some pretty amazing people for your podcast, wouldn't you say?
Oh, absolutely. And it's been a wide variety of people. I've interviewed people that had to do with, I'll say, additive manufacturing, technology and manufacturing. But I've also, through some colleagues that I've met in the past, been able to interview Lee Cockrell just recently and here's a well-known person who was a senior executive at Disney. And I asked him about his journey to become an entrepreneur. And so, I mean, he has his own set of expertise about leadership and customer service, but he was able to share his journey with me. And then I also interviewed his son, Dan, who's a bit younger, but he shared his journey of what he's been able to do to create value for other people outside of the corporate life. So it's been a really rewarding opportunity to just learn from these people and then be able to share what they know with my audience.
And see, isn't that awesome? I mean, everybody listening right now, should be so inspirational to you. I mean, here's Lynn. He's just a guy, started a podcast, and yet he gets to interview like a senior executive from Disney on his podcast. I mean, that's what a podcast can do. It gives you access. You have a media and you have an audience that you can share someone's story. And a podcast can be a great way to network with people that you want to network with. I mean, there's nothing easier or nothing more fun than reaching out to an influencer and saying, hey, can I feature you or can I feature your book? I know I've read some of Lee's books on Disney and Disney leadership because we all look at Disney and, it's just amazing the way that the culture and how they do things. And that's so awesome because once you do an interview like that, you've got a connection. And who knows where that connection could lead down the road. I love that. So what's next for you? Looking forward in 2021, is there anything specific that you're working on right now?
Excuse me. Well, yeah, I want to continue growing and establishing my one-on-one coaching or group coaching opportunities for people who want to become silver entrepreneurs. Again, I'm showing people how to do it through the podcast, but that's only part of the story. I know from my own experience, you need to build repetition, have some people help encourage you along the way, and I want to provide that to people. So again, I'm looking forward to helping people, grow in their journey to become a silver entrepreneur.
I love that. I love that. And so let's talk about that because, I know we all have these excuses that go in our head, right? Sometimes they feel very real. They don't feel like an excuse. They just feel like the truth in our own head. And I know for me, I remember being 22, 23 years old. I'd been teaching for 2 or 3 years. And I remember writing down, I was actually reading one of John Maxwell's books, something about the roadmap of your life or something like that, where you kind of put down what you wanted. And I was like, I want to be a business coach. That's what I said at 23. But I'm like, I'm a high school teacher. Who's gonna hire me to be a business coach? I'm too young. I don't have experience and all of those things. And obviously it took time for me to get where I am, but today that's what I get to do on Online Business Coach and get to help amazing people like yourself and get their message out there. And so that's on one end, but I'm sure you experience, especially with this concept of silver entrepreneur, people who maybe battle in their own mind the reasons why maybe they're too old, that they're too old to start something. They're too old to start a business. They're too old to grab a hold of technology and understand it well enough to utilize it for their business. They don't want to understand marketing. So somebody who's on the fence like that, what would you have to say to them that would be an encouragement?
Well, I think again, it's one of those things where I had this experience. Either I didn't know what to do next, or I was overwhelmed by too many things to do next. So people like that, especially with your materials, Jonathan, you have frameworks, you have things, and you can say, okay, here's the path you're going to be on, but here's just the first step you want to take, and you can focus on one step at a time. So that's the thing for me. And the other thing that came, what I found as I went along here is, uh, while I was coaching people on leadership or how to become a silver entrepreneur, I was actually having people coach me on how to do podcasting, how to do marketing, so I had, and often young people. So it was sort of a reverse mentoring. So
I
uh,
love that.
I often depend on relatively younger people to teach me the technology, to teach me the other skills that I simply don't know yet.
Yeah, and I think that's awesome. And staying open to learning, right? And believing that you can learn these things. And it's just a matter of just focus and learning it for
Mhm.
a lot of times. So you put together this cool resource, and I included it in an email earlier today that went out to the list. So anybody who's watching, if you're on our subscriber list, Lynn's put together a pretty cool resource. I'm going to share the link in YouTube. So if you're watching right now on YouTube, if you're not, if you're over in one of our Facebook groups, we will post the link later. I'm just here live doing this. So I'm going to post that in. There's a link I just threw into YouTube. And that link will take you to a special page that Lynn has set up. And it's called Begin Your Journey as a Silver Entrepreneur. So if you're out there and you would consider yourself a silver entrepreneur, which I love this concept. I love this this terminology. And basically what you're going to get if you go to that page is Lynn has put together the 5 steps to creating your success mindset. And I think this is so important because you could learn all the tactics and take the courses, but if you don't get the right mindset, you won't take the action, right? Because what goes on in here determines our actions. It's beliefs then action. And so you gotta really make sure you have that right mindset. And so definitely check that out. I just put that link in there. Anything else you want to say about that resource?
No, it just, again, that's what I found was the fundamental piece. Uh, I could find somebody to do the tech for me or teach me to do it, but only I can work on my mindset. So that's the piece. And again, in a corporate life, a lot of things are defined for me, whether it be mindsets or my value proposition.
Yeah.
All of a sudden now I had to define those things for myself. So spending some intentional time about your habits of thinking and your mindset is critical to, I think, to your success.
Yeah. Well, beyond grabbing that resource for the 5 success steps, how can people connect with you, Lynn? Where can they find more of what you're up to?
Well, my website is simple to find, lynnfriesth.com. And there I have both the blog and the podcast going on. Uh, you can search for me on LinkedIn at Lynn Friesth. If you want to go right to the podcast in iTunes, you can search for Leading the Factory Forward. And finally, if you want to drop me an email, again, it's Lynn at lynnfriesth.com. So it's pretty straightforward.
I love that. And so if you're watching out there and you're connected with Lynn, you're like, this is what I need. I need somebody who's focusing on helping the silver entrepreneur figure out how to take their life's wealth of knowledge and expertise and package that in a way that's non-intimidating for non-techie people to help you start a business or get something out there, then I encourage you to connect with Lynn. So definitely do that. Again, you can always look him up as far as his podcast, Leading the Factory Forward, there as well. Anything else you'd like to share as we wrap things up? I don't know, something we didn't talk about, something from your heart, something that that I don't know, just
Well,
something you want to share.
I guess in this year, whether we be working from home or whatever, it was a time where I think a lot of things in our lives were unfrozen. Whatever habits we had, whatever we were used to doing every day, those routines got disrupted. So that was very disconcerting to many of us, me included. But it also, I think, gave us a lot of opportunities. We can now
Mm.
do something new because the old routines have been disrupted. And in today's world, especially with virtual work, um, you know, people now have gone to Costa Rica to do their job. Well, if you're, again, you can make contributions to people around the world from wherever you are. So it's not a matter of necessarily having to, you don't have to drive or fly everywhere. You can, again, continue to make contributions in life wherever you're at.
It's such great advice. And I think for a lot of us, Lynn, we have, for a lot of people have been forced to do virtual, right? It's like they've never
Mhm.
worked from home. It's kind of a new concept for them. And now that people have done it, I know some people are beginning to think, how could I do this, but yet be my own boss? So I'm not necessarily like got a boss or somebody who's dictating to me what I have to do for my work. I can have that
Right.
entrepreneur creative freedom. And also, I have the freedom to earn what I want to earn. I don't have someone who's deciding if I'm getting a little bump in salary every year or what my extra little bonus is going to be. I can make that decision for myself. And so that I think is what's stirring in people even more now. Awesome. All right, so guys, there's Lynn. Lynn, thank you for being here. You guys definitely connect with him. And Lynn, thanks for being on the show.
Thank you, Jonathan, and thank you for your friendship and help throughout the years.
You're welcome. All right, guys, what'd you think of Lynn? Lynn's pretty awesome, isn't he? I think you should definitely connect with him. Go listen to his podcast because he's got some amazing interviews on there. Like I said, I don't know if he's dropped it yet, but he's got interviews coming. Yeah, not yet, but it's coming. Lee Cockrell, and from a senior executive of Disney, he's written several books. So you can go check out some of his work, and he has a conversation with Lynn, and Lynn's just doing an amazing job. And as you can see, Lynn is just a down-to-earth, connect with him instantly kind of guy, and somebody that you just, I don't know, when I first met him, I just instantly trusted Lynn. And so definitely connect with him. He is awesome. All right, guys. So that is it for this tonight's episode. I'm really working at trying to keep these 30 to 40 minutes. Tomorrow, we're going to be interviewing 2 more people. In fact, let me confirm, look at the calendar. We are going to be interviewing, and did I close it? Well, I already know what it is. It's Matt McWilliams. So Matt McWilliams at 1 o'clock, all about affiliate marketing. Here's a guy who worked in a regular day job, started learning about affiliate marketing. If you don't know anything about affiliate marketing, you're going to learn a lot from Matt and the conversation there. And then tomorrow night at 8 o'clock, I've got Loria Petrucci from Live Streaming Pros. So I know a lot of people have asked me, Jonathan, how did you create the setup? How did you do the screens? How did you learn how to do that? I learned it all from Loria. So she's going to be on our show tomorrow night talking about live streaming. And maybe you don't want a fancy studio. Maybe you just want to be able to go live with your phone. You can do that as well. But if you're interested in utilizing live streaming as a way to share your message, come back tomorrow night. All right, that's it for tonight. You guys have a great night, and we'll talk to you again soon. Bye-bye.